Well, they're not at the same pay level as Mr. Steffens, yourself. Would they be billed at $100, or would that be a non-billable time, or would that be billed at a lower rate? Such as writing a letter.
Can you hear? Well, under this current project, we're going to be becoming part of your staff, and again, our work and our projected work will be done here. So clerical work, that type of work will be done again here at the village or at City Hall
By our staff, is that what I hear you say?
by your staff, as if we're stepping in that role as the city engineer.
That's an answer that's good to hear. Thank you.
Alderman Wesley.
My question is about Elmhurst Street. We have a project on Elmhurst Street, which we have an engineer. Now, we paying your firm separate for that. Now, we're not going to have the engineer that's supposed to be on Elmhurst Street doing Oak Street sidewalks too, correct? We're going to have a separate engineer for that.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything further? Alderman Cadella.
If I could add to that just a little bit, my name's Steve Zahner. In the instance of Oak Street right now, it's kind of a management of issues that as they're coming up. It's not really a full-blown design or construction project, and maybe we would have that gentleman step over there if there is an issue, that the sidewalk doesn't line up. What should I be doing? Rather than having your staff, have us come out there to resolve that. It may be more expeditious if we just say, hey, Jim, can you step over there for 15 minutes, meet with John to resolve the issue that the resident has. That would be a little bit more expeditious than us saying, okay, have somebody come out of our task office to drive over here for a 15-minute meeting.
Could I add to that?
Alderman Wesley.
My point is, I just don't want an hour or 2 hours spent on Oak Street when we're paying you to watch Elmhurst Street too.
Absolutely.
I can assure you that you will not be receiving double bills for the same time. I also can assure you that we are proposing and plan on providing a detailed description for the hours that are charged and a description thereof, and in which tasks. So just to make sure that you feel comfortable that you won't be receiving a double bill.
Alderman Cadella.
I suppose it's somewhat of a logistical question, but as you both, our consultant and our city manager, see it, Wally, are you assuming that you'll remain first point of contact for residents with problems, particularly with heavy rain or flooding situations? You will then either put that resident in touch with the appropriate individual from Baxter and Woodman, or set up a three-way meeting, whatever. I mean, it'll be an actual city employee, I'm assuming yourself or Jeff, as basic point of contact?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think one of the first things we really would love to do is establish a clear line of communication so that everybody's notified appropriately.
Alderman Wesley.
Hi, Mayor. So more or less, you'll be in our office 3 days a week, this office?
We will be in the office as much as needed and directed by the city manager.
Well, so you're going to tell me they're going to be in there 3 days a week for sure?
It depends on the workload. They may need to be in here 5 days a week.
Okay.
But, I mean, 2 years ago, I had a discussion with the Itasca Village manager about the way he interacts with Baxter and Woodman, because they're his city engineer. And he said, they're there as much as we need them. If something pops up in the afternoon and I need them to come on over from Itasca, I give them a call and they come on over. It's as much as is required and no more.
Okay. I have no problem approving this tonight at all. The only thing is I would appreciate open-end communication with your company. We went down that route already, and while you're aware of the situation, and I need to make sure that they are guaranteed open-end communication with us, because we went down that route already, and I don't want to go that route again. The other thing is, I have no problem approving this. The only thing I'm asking you for, Wally, and I guess I could do out here, I know you said you may be doing interviews or whatever looking. I am asking that we go out for RFQ or what do you call that, Pat? Yeah, request for proposals too, because this council may decide not to hire within and see what the bucks are for outsource. So could we make sure that happens too in this transaction somehow?
In addition to starting the recruitment process for an internal candidate, you want me to start an RFP process for a consulting engineer at the same time? While we have these guys on contract?
I understand that, but the point is,
Well, I mean,
here's the thing, and I couldn't have an answer back there. Here's the thing. What we're doing here tonight, you say 3 or 4 months or whatever. What if it goes longer? We are handing them an open checkbook almost to finish the year out or whatever is going on. I ain't saying that this company is against the project. I mean, I think they're a very legit company, but I also like to see what else may be out there. And we discussed that before in other committee meetings, that we should go out for that and see what it actually going to cost to hire a in-house engineer permanently versus a outsource. The reason is for that is because there might be on this council, you come back with a proposal to hire this guy. You get a guy and said, I'm going to hire this guy, and we may not want to hire a guy with outside. We may want to go outside. I don't know what the price tag will be out there again.
and we talked about that at lunch today, and I think what I would like to do is to bring back a status report at each part of the recruitment process to see if you're still happy with outsourcing or you want us to keep going with recruitment. And we can stop that at any time. So for example, just for example, we're going to send out an ad, and there'll be a certain date by which applications are accepted. And before we start setting up interviews, I'll come back to you and say, guys, ladies and gentlemen, we've finished the initial advertisement, and we have 35 applications. Do you want us to keep going along with the internal candidate recruitment, or are you happy enough with an outside consultant that you want us to just ditch the internal recruitment and go with an outside consultant? And then comes the time where we review all the applications, and before we start the interview process, I'll come back to you all and say, we're done reviewing the applications, we're ready to start the interview process. You know, where are you on this? You're still happy? You want us to shut it down? And you say, no, keep going along, you know, we're not sure yet. So we interview all these folks, and I narrow it down to the final candidate, and I come back to you and say, I've got a final candidate, but before I make him or her a job offer, I want to see where you are on an ongoing relationship with a consulting engineer. And if you decide midway through here that you want to cast your lot with a consulting engineer and want us to start an RFP process, it'll take a whole lot less time to do an RFP for consulting engineers than it will for me to hire an internal candidate. And if you decide down the line you like the concept of an outside consulting engineer, but you're not really ready to continue a long-term relationship with Baxter and Woodman, and you'd like me to go out and get an RFP, I can do that. I can do that probably within 30 days.
Alderman Winger.
Mr. Manager covered it as far as keeping us abreast of the recruitment process, because I was going to suggest that, yeah, we could look at it at a Finance and Administration Committee meeting, whether we go in-house or outsource. But as long as you're keeping us updated on the process, that'll give opportunity at each juncture to do that. So I think we're okay.
I would see that decision being made down the road as we start talking about the budget for next year. Anything further? Alderman Lewitton.
Al Steffens, this is, I got to ask this question. I don't mean it to be rude. I don't mean to put you on the spot. But if we're paying you this rate per hour to watch over the projects, like we would be for Elmhurst Street, and you're the contractor on that street. Are we paying the wolf to watch the hens?
We are not the contractors. We are, you're going to be paying me to be the engineer, and yes, I have staff that is going to be out there watching the contractor. So I guess in essence, you are correct. I will be supervising my personnel, but I can assure you this is a role that I take in several other communities, and I can assure you that, I am looking out for your best interest, and we will be looking out for your best interest, and so that there is no conflict. So I can give you my word that the circumstance that you're concerned about will not arise.
Okay. I would like to ask the person who made the motion if in there it's put in there that part of the acceptance is, and this I'm taking from Mr. Steffen's own words, that the contract is per hour and not per man hour, so that we would never be billed for 2 hours for the same 1 hour that two people came in here. He just gave the example that he's here with Mr. Zimmer, is it? Zahner. And if this was a billable meeting, we'd be billed for the time that both men were at this committee meeting, not for the time that each man was here. Is that, Mayor, will that be acceptable?
Well,
That it's billing per hour, not per individual man in an hour. This is I'm paraphrasing your own statement that we can go back and watch on TV.
Yes, sir. I just for clarification's sake, and I want to be clear, the man hours that if the village or the city manager has asked us to provide additional staff or expertise in the board meeting, then we would be charging appropriately. But if there is really no issues here and there's only one person that's really necessary, and again, with concurrence from the city manager, we will only bill once. But if there's an expertise item, such as there's several projects that you will need experts in, and the various disciplines, maybe perhaps construction, a design question, and perhaps maybe a study question, and there may be several people from my office here, that would be based on a project specific, but the general engineering, and the role as city engineer would be one.
I'm not sure I completely understand that. Can one of you gentlemen on the board here, the attorney, give me a better
I guess
Actually, I think we
definition
may
of
have,
that billing?
we may have an answer here. Mr. Bond?
Yeah, I think the way to address that, and I have worked with Baxter and Woodman too in other communities and have confidence in their billing. The way you would address that is through a staff review of the billing and ensure that there is no billing where time has been utilized, two people are on the exact same task on a project. I think what's suggested is you may have, and the same is true with our office, somebody may be in court on a matter and somebody else is doing research for that matter. You would be billed for both of those attorneys working on the same project but performing two separate tasks. And I think the same would be true in the Baxter and Woodman. You may have someone with expertise in their office who's working on one component of the project, another engineer who's got a different expertise or in a different discipline who would be working on the same project, perhaps during the same hours, and you would be paying for those man hours. And I think what they've suggested, which is the way we do it as well, if we're conferring among ourselves on behalf of the city of Wooddale, that there is not a charge for that or for two people to attend a meeting, a board meeting or something of that nature. But if there's a task specific, I think the contract provides, and they would be entitled to be compensated for that. To the extent that there is any issue with that, that's appropriate at the approval of the warrant. You can ask those questions of the city manager or the finance director and make sure that in fact is not the case.
In a contract like this, then, Mr. Bond, is there a remediation of dispute? built into the contract?
Mr. Bond?
There is not, it's to the benefit of the city, you don't pay the bill. Period.
But isn't there a law in Illinois that says you have to pay contractors on a timely basis, so you can't withhold it indefinitely?
Well,
Mr. Bond?
there is the Illinois Prompt Payment Act, which requires units of local government to pay their bills within 30 days. And if they don't, they have to put the contractor or vendor on notice as to that there is a dispute and the nature of the dispute. So you would simply need to advise them of that dispute, and to the extent that an accommodation could not be reached where there's some meeting of the minds as to those charges, my recommendation to the city would be simply don't pay it, and there is no mandatory arbitration or some other provision in that contract. And again, my dealings with Baxter and Woodman would suggest that that is not a situation that you will encounter.
Alderman Wesley?
Which one?
Eugene Wesley?
Again?
Mr. Bond, I have a legal question for you now that this came to light here. Baxter and Woods is overseeing the Elmhurst Street project now. I understand once that project is completed, some engineers got to sign off on it. Now, here's a conflict I have. How do we have, if they oversee the project, how do they sign off that that project is done right, knowing that we just hire them temporarily and we don't have in-house? Is that so?
Mr. Bond?
Yeah, well, it's not a conflict. What you're relying on, and one of the reasons that you are contemplating the retention of Baxter and Woodman, is you're relying on their professional expertise. So they're going to be reviewing that. They do wear two hats. There's no question that they are wearing two hats in that capacity. Is that there is no legal conflict for them performing services in both of those arenas, but what you are relying upon is their professional expertise. So you've got that to base it on, but nothing more.
So,
May I suggest that we are making this way too difficult?
no, I'm not, Mayor, because here's the thing. Because if we figure out that, say, Baxter and Wood screws up that Elmhurst Street project, God forbid, if something happens out there, how do I go after that engineer firm when they're representing us?
Because they just certified the project was done correct?
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's true. We also didn't design the project, but however, we also abide by the code of ethics. I mean, we're a very ethical business. We've been in business for over 65 years. We represent a lot of communities in the area. We wouldn't represent a lot of communities if there was a conflict.
Alderman Wesley?
We all have questions for the engineers from time to time. Wally, is it possible that we could get on Monday an email of when these engineers are going to be in, so we have questions for them, we could ask them directly? Or is that too hard to do?
I think it's a little bit difficult to do because, first of all, Monday is Labor Day.
I'm not saying this week.
What I want to do is set up a kickoff meeting. Mr. Steffen's going to be out of town Tuesday and Wednesday. I've got conflicts all day Thursday. My intent is to set up a kickoff meeting with their project team and the people on my staff who are involved in this on Friday morning, a week from tomorrow, to get a good handle on how all of this is going to work. And at that stage of the game, I can furnish you with phone numbers and emails.
But we get billed for that.
Yeah. And I think I would suggest that you call me first, and I may be able to handle it in the course of another conversation with them.
I want to know when they're here.
I don't know yet. And when I find out, I don't know if they'll be set office hours or not. That's
Okay.
something we need to find out.
We'll discuss that later. Thank you.
Yes, much like aldermen should not be calling the city law firm and asking for a legal opinion without approval of the city council, I would suggest that all questions be screened through Mr. Douthwaite, Mr. Murmas, or Mr. Kramer. And if they can't, I understand what you're saying, and you have the freedom to do that, but I don't want individual aldermen necessarily calling the engineer and they're billing us $100 an hour. Everything should be screened through the city manager. Like I say, this thing got very complicated, and it shouldn't be. What we're doing is hiring Baxter and Woodman to perform engineering services for the city of Wooddale. The quoted rate is $100 per hour. The net result is going to be less expensive than the former employee that we had working for the city of Wooddale. This is a great deal. Roll call.
Alderman Lewitton,
Yes.
Alderman Police,
Yes.
Alderman E. Wesley,
Yes.
Alderman Cadella,
Yes.
Alderman Winger.
Yes.
Alderman R. Wesley,
Yes.
Alderman Shockey.
Yes.
That passes. There are no items for information only. May I have a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?